if you were to take it for?
I would put it in a cream, like 2 drops, and I would mix it with a couple different oils. I would include tea tree, I would include thyme. Thyme has been shown to increase white blood cell production, so that was a great one to add in unless someone has something like leukemia or anything where you wouldn't want more white blood cells. You can add thyme in for that.
Actually,
Lemon.
sorry, that was pointing, I have so many questions, but you're hitting on all of them right now. My aunt was just diagnosed with breast cancer, and just today I was looking up chamomile and thyme oils to get her. Now, I saw that they can kill, it's like the MC7 or something is the name of the cells that are in there, and it suggested to rub it on the area where the cancer is. Is that a
Yeah,
safe?
typically, like if you have arthritis in your hip, you would make a cream, you would rub it into the hip. If you have something like the flu, you'd make a cream and you rub it into the bottom of the feet, behind the ears, pulse points, carotid arteries, everywhere where the skin's most permeable. But if it's something where you have a burn on your hand, insect bite, you apply it right where the afflicted area is.
But it would be safe to put thyme oil?
I'm not familiar with what breast cancer does. Does that affect white blood cells? I think you'd be fine with that. What you would want to avoid is like clary sage, which is an actual estrogen hormone regulating oil. And I know that with breast cancer, they always are very cautious about anything with estrogen. So like you wouldn't want to use estrogen done, for example. But when there's something going on like that, I would always run it by the doctor first. Like, hey, this is something we want to try, because you never know. Like, I can't think of an example offhand, but you just wouldn't want to do anything that might be counterindicated with what the doctor wants to do. But typically, that's exactly what you would do. You rub it right into the afflicted area. If it's for hair loss, I've tried a couple blends. I've yet to be successful. Rub it into the scalp. But like rosemary is really good at stimulating hair growth. I mean, it's past the point of no return, unfortunately. But back to the flu blend, you could add a little bit of lemon, thyme, oregano, tea tree, and then you could put that, like over there I have these little empty roll-on bottles. You get a little empty roll-on bottle, you can mix it yourself, or we have a full roll-on that's already done, ready to go. But you mix your oils up, you put it however you want to do it, and then rub that into the bottom of the feet if it's for flu or cold. If you're doing it for just as an expectorant, you could just use eucalyptus and hot water, make a little tent, and breathe it in. The thing you want to be very cautious about is take out your contacts first, because otherwise, if you don't remember before you do it, you'll remember really quick after, because eucalyptus will get up behind the contacts and will start burning the eye. So you really want to make sure you take contacts out if you're going to do stuff like that. But it's just kind of common sense. If you're going to be using it for as an expectorant, you want to inhale it as best you can. You can use diffusers to diffuse it overnight. The one thing you want to be mindful of if you're going to try to do it for your whole sleep cycle, get a diffuser that has an intermittent setting, meaning it will go on for 30 seconds, off for 30 seconds. Otherwise, your diffuser will run out of water about 2 to 3 hours after you go to bed, and you'll wake up all stuffed up because your diffuser stopped. And you have to put more water in, put more oils in, but the intermittent one will let you do that. I know that's one of the diffusers you got. She's my testimonial. And she's probably my best customer for Breathe Easy, which is a blend that has frankincense, which is a bronchial dilator, peppermint, all kinds of different oils that just really open up the bronchioles and just make it much easier to breathe, especially if you have things going on. So, any other questions? Did I see another question over here? I thought someone was about to ask one.
That tea tree, is it Manuka honey that they
Yes. Yeah, I've even seen that at Trader Joe's before I bought it, and man, it doesn't taste anything like I thought it would taste. Tea tree is definitely, as an oil, it's fine. As a flavoring, I'm not a big fan of it personally. But if you needed it, if you have like a flu or something, you could use that honey in your tea, and that would just be an added benefit of having that tea tree going in.
It's lower glycemic load too than regular honey.
I didn't know that. See, I always learn something too whenever I teach. So, well, a couple of quick things too. If anybody's ever pregnant, again, I cover CYA aromatherapy. When dealing with moms and babies, my general rule of thumb is you don't use anything. There's some very reputable books that say you can use lavender during the first trimester. There's other reputable books that say you can't use lavender during the first trimester. So there's so much inconsistency, and I doubt that they're ever going to do a study that says, let's give this population of pregnant women these oils and see if we can cause miscarriages. So at the end of the day, I would, with the exception of ginger for inhalation for nausea, we don't recommend anything for while you're pregnant. there are things like closer to deliver, like when my wife, with our first child, we're waiting and waiting and waiting for our son to come, and he's just being stubborn, and we finally got the go from the doctor that we were going to induce. So at that point, I made a blend that is supposed to start labor. Still didn't do it. But there's this one restaurant, Italian restaurant, they had this one dish on the menu called baby eggplant parmesan. They renamed it because so many pregnant women after eating this dish would go into labor. And it was all the things in the oregano and the thyme and the things in that, the herbs in that. And they even had a whole wall, and it was just all eggplant babies, they called them. Like people ate and then went right into labor. So it's really something you want to be cognizant of. And then if they're breastfeeding, the oil chemicals are so small that it goes right into the breast milk. So remember, and I said you don't want to be ingesting oils if they're breastfeeding. There's a couple creams that you could use for like cracked nipples to help with while they're nursing and things, but generally you don't really use anything while you're using essential oils. If there were a case that you had to for some reason, you'd want to pump and dump and that type of thing. If you have any questions on that, that can be a side conversation. Okay, so I want to start giving you some of the actual oils. Bergamot. This is there's one study that we did. I should say George did, where they would diffuse bergamot in assisted living homes with the intention that they wanted to get the people to eat more. And so the food was weighed before, and the plates were weighed when they went out, and the plates were weighed when they came back, and they were able to show that the people would start eating more when they were diffusing the bergamot. The sad thing is with the assisted care facilities, I don't know if you know anything about them, but there's a high turnover rate pretty much of everybody. It's always new people, and as soon as there was a new director, the study fell apart because they no longer wanted to contribute. But there were very promising results earlier on when they were doing that. Bergamot is also good for things like seasonal affective disorder. There's one we have over there called Liquid Sunshine. It's just bergamot, grapefruit, and I believe lemon. I forget now. There's one other citrus blend, but it's all things for being uplifted and that type of thing. In general, though, if somebody's already on a medication for depression, you don't want to use an essential oil for that same thing because they are counterindicated. They can work against the drugs because they work differently. So you want to, if they're already on a medication, just talk to the doctor to get them off before you want to try doing an essential oil substitute. But that's bergamot. And usually I do these in groups. However, I think I'm just going to go in alphabetical order because it makes it easier for me. Black pepper. One great thing about black pepper is it has been shown in studies to reduce nicotine withdrawal symptoms. That does not mean that it eliminates them. You definitely still get withdrawal symptoms. However, it makes it a little bit more manageable. And if there's other addictions involved, mixing black pepper with another one called ylang has been shown for other addictions. One great thing that I also found black pepper for, and I added it into the book, is it's wonderful for bruising. My aunt, before she passed, she worked at, I forget what the name of the company, but she was talking to somebody at a cubicle, and someone had put down a box right behind her. And it wasn't there 2 minutes ago. She turns to walk back to her desk, trips over the box, falls down, ended up with all these terrible bruises. So I made a blend mainly with black pepper, some rosemary. I think I put Roman chamomile as an anti-inflammatory. And in just a day even, like the bruising had almost completely gone away. So it's a wonderful one for that type of thing. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything. When you see one on the sheet that says reduces frigidity, it means it has like an aphrodisiac type quality. And we like saying that because it's not like it makes you do something you wouldn't normally do. It just makes you a little bit more open to the experience, we would say. So we call it frigidity reducing. And now, though I tell people not to use any oils while pregnant, you'll notice on the sheet that there's some that I say never use while pregnant. When I put that down, that means really, if you're gonna not listen to me, this is not the oil to do it with. Makes sense? And lavender is one of those. Unfortunately, we actually had a miscarriage, my wife and I, but mainly her, but I was there, yeah, you got it. But when it happened, I'm just kind of thinking about it, and we were using a soap from Trader Joe's. It was a lavender dish soap. And just for poops and giggles, I contacted them and said, could you get me the dilution rate? And it was like something insane, like a 14% dilution rate. And let me put that into context. For most aromatherapy blends that we have, it's a 1% dilution rate when it's a cream. The arthritis blend is like 1.4%, because that's how potent the oils are. With the roll-ons, we have a higher dilution rate because you're using less product. So when you're using like a fluid roll-on, you're rolling it and you're done. When you're using a cream, you're using a lot more cream. So that's why we make a roll-on, you would make it a much higher dilution rate than a cream because you're just using more or less product. So there was that, and then she happened to be going to this yoga thing at the time, and at the end of yoga, they would do this hand massage, and there was lavender in it. So I will never know if that is what caused it or not, but that's just one more reason that, that's considered to be the most safest of all oils and all this. When it's pregnant, don't use anything. And that's the moral of the story. Carrot seed. Carrot seed is also an oil that I added to this. This isn't one that George normally had taught, but when I was doing some research, I found that there were case studies where it would reverse precancerous skin conditions. So I'm like, that's an oil that I want to carry and go over. But it's also just amazing, amazing, amazing for skin. In fact, in a lot of cosmetics, you might find that they have carrot seed oil in cosmetics, like for different types of skin creams. So if you want to make something really good for the skin, you could use that, clary sage, ylang ylang, frankincense. Frankincense, actually, there was a guy in Dr. Oz, I think his name was I'm trying to remember his name. I just signed up for his mailing list too, and I can't remember his name. But he was on Dr. Oz, and he was saying that it was good for age spots. And then I was teaching a master mixer course, and one of the ladies said, I wish I took a picture of this, because it would be so much better to show you. But she's like, I saw that on Dr. Oz, and I started doing it immediately, but I only did it on one hand. She's like, and look. And one hand, there were virtually no age spots, and one hand, she still had them. I was like, that's amazing. And I'm like, I'm kicking myself for not taking a picture, because I would be like, see, this is before and after frankincense. So that would be kind of a neat little thing to do. But carrot seed oil, a wonderful thing for skin rejuvenation, rashes. If you were making something for like eczema or psoriasis, you could use like the carrot seed, a little bit of dragon's blood, which is actually a resin. It's not an essential oil. And I'll pass some of that around a little bit later too.
They said carrot seed oil is also good for sunblock as well, but it can be used in sunblock.
That's a good one. One thing you want to avoid with the sun is any citrus oil. Any citrus oil is photosensitizing, meaning that if you have a citrus on, and then you go, like say you get a massage, and you just love orange, so you haven't put orange all in the massage cream, and then you go out on the beach, you will crisp. It is something you want to definitely avoid. Unless it's a folded citrus oil. And this is, again, the reason you want to look at an MSD sheet. When there's a folded oil, the process is a little bit different, and that photosensitive negative, if you will, is removed from it. And you would use those for different things. It's not something that I carry, but just another reason, another example why you always want to ask for those MSD sheets so you can know what you're getting. No, this is cedar. Cedar is, of course, an insect repellent. A greatest testament to this is every kennel in the world pretty much uses cedar chips in the dog kennels, and that's because it repels fleas. So it's a natural flea repellent. Really good for dandruff. And the nice thing with essential oils, it's not like you have to use it all the time, forever, for the rest of your life type of thing. If you have a little bit of dandruff, you can put a couple drops in your conditioner every day for a week. You do that, and the dandruff will go away. And when it comes back a couple months later, you can do that again. I have one friend, and she's given me permission to share this with you all. But she was using the woman's formula, which is a hormone regulating blend, and without the use of birth control, it totally regulated her menstrual cycle. But she told me she only has to buy it about once a year because she'll use it for about a week, 2 weeks, and then that's it. And when maybe 6 months, 8 months down the line, it starts getting a little wonky again, she'll go on for about 2 weeks, and then it takes care of it again. So it's not like take this pill every day for the rest of your life. You take it when you need it. And all that was topical. Let's see, anything astringent? Focus and concentration. Oh, another really good one for focus and concentration is lemon. There's actually a case study where, and I don't have a lemon, so I won't be passing that one around, but it was shown to increase test scores on average of 7%. So without any other differences, when they were just doing a study with students, they diffused lemon. Oh, that's another study in Japan I'll tell you about. But they would just diffuse lemon while they were taking the test, and it increased all the test scores. Also, it's shown to improve people's jump shots for free throws in basketball. In Japan, they did a thing where at the bank, they would diffuse lavender on the customer side and lemon on the teller side to keep the tellers alert and the customers calm. So that was kind of a neat little one, too. Clary sage. Now, I see a lot of people get excited when I go over this oil because one of the weird, quirky side effects of clary sage is it increases the effects of alcohol. Okay. Yeah. Now, before you think cheap buzz, it also can, when mixed with alcohol, can cause night terrors. So don't think cheap buzz, but it's something to be mindful of. If you're gonna be using clary sage and having a glass of wine, you might be more inebriated than normal because of the clary sage. But clary sage is also the one that creates a natural estrogen, so you want to make sure that if there's any cancer situations or anything like that, that you want to avoid it. Another thing you might want to avoid, like soy milk, for example. Soy milk creates a natural estrogen. It's one of the theories of childhood obesity in the States because how much baby formula has a soy base? And guess what estrogen binds with? Fat cells. So that's just something to be cognizant too, just in general. Aromatherapy aside, soy is okay, just make sure it's not like a staple, perhaps. And then I've also heard my friend Brian, he actually says that whole thing was debunked, but I haven't seen that yet. So until I actually read it for myself, I will still tell people, do your own research, but keeping soy to a minimum may be a good thing. Was there a question? No? Okay, just making sure. Let's see, that's another one you definitely don't want to use. One part of creativity. If you are an artist, or you're a writer and you really need a little creative inspiration, diffuse clary sage. George's wife Vicky does stained glass, and she's good at it, don't get me wrong, but when she diffuses clary sage when she's working, like those pieces whenever she's at an art show go so much more, like you can tell there's a notable difference. So if you're ever in need of inspiration, clary sage is definitely a good one to go with. Or if you wanted to try a little sound on the same note, no pun intended, you can try Bergamot or beats. So if you have, I'm a sound practitioner, so I always have to throw at least one sound thing into my talks, right? But beats influence your brain waves. So if you were to have, like, say, 250 hertz on this side and 258 hertz on this side, that will put you into theta. And that would be great for creativity, getting in touch with intuition, that type of thing. Because the sounds in the brain waves are so low they're below the audible range, so you can't really hear them. But your brain will perceive the difference between the two, and then it creates like this little wah 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 in your head, and you end up getting that. So it's kind of fun. I'll do a talk eventually on sound too. That's on the to-do list. So if you're interested in sound therapy, definitely sign up for the mailing list so you can find out about it. Eucalyptus. Now, eucalyptus is actually one of the most toxic oils, so it's definitely one you want to avoid. Uh-oh, I think I need to grab a new one. This one was empty. Does everybody know what eucalyptus smells like? Okay. Let me also start by saying eucalyptus has so many different types. This particular one is Eucalyptus globulus. That one's the one that's better as an expectorant. Eucalyptus radiate, for example, is much better as a muscle relaxant, which you would apply topically. They're definitely ones you want to keep out of the reach of children. Like a little bottle like this, if a child got a hold of it and drank it, that would be enough to kill a child. There is a book called Aromatherapy for Healthcare Professionals, and in that, not that I condone the research on animals, but they have the lethal dose rates for basically any oil, where they continually give mice an oil until it would kill 50% of the population, and that's what they deemed the lethal dose rate to be. And then they did that ingestion, and they also did it topically. So this is one that you want to always use sparingly. But it is wonderful as an expectorant. One odd side effect, one odd thing is that it can cause asthma attacks for whatever reason. So you don't want to put it in a blend for asthma. But for cold flu, you get it. For that type of thing, eucalyptus is great. You just don't want to use it for kids, especially kids with asthma or epilepsy. I believe there were some studies that showed that it could promote seizures for epileptic type people too. Animal repellent. I have a lady, I haven't used it myself for this, but she swears that there's nothing that will even come close to her barn anymore. The barn is abandoned, and she had all these issues with critters getting in, raccoons and everything, and she just took cotton balls filled with eucalyptus, soaked in it, and threw them all over the barn, and now nothing will go in there. So that's a great one if you ever have a situation like that. Now, if you only have to worry about mice, peppermint is a natural rodent repellent. And we have a lot of people with like hunting cabins that will do that same thing, cotton balls and peppermint, and put them around the cabin, and that will keep the mice out. So, and also peppermint's good for repelling ants too. Frankincense.
Does peppermint repel spiders? Is that a myth?
I have heard that.
Okay.
I've never tried it for myself. Now, frankincense is a very medicinal oil. That's one reason that in the Bible, when it was one of the gifts to Christ, it wasn't just because it was, it's right up there with gold. It was very medicinal. If there were any sicknesses, they would use that and myrrh as a powerful analgesic. But one of the biggest things everybody thinks about frankincense is meditation, and the reason is it's a bronchodilator. So if you want to meditate, you diffuse some frankincense. you'll naturally get more oxygen in with each breath that you take. So that's a huge thing with frankincense. We already talked about the age spots, which is another really cool benefit. I don't have that yet, but I'm sure it's just, maybe if I start now, I'll never have it. Right? We'll see. Burns, age spots, fades, old scars. If you mix it with lavender especially, if you have someone with scars, like right after surgery, of course, you don't want to be messing around with it. But to break up scar tissue, there's something called a cross-stitch massage, and you can probably Google it to get instructions on how to perform it. But it breaks up the scar tissue, and the lavender and the frankincense will help get the scar to go away. So it's a really good combination. I originally learned just about lavender with that, and then found frankincense to be very good with that as well. But frankincense is also powerful analgesic, very good for respiratory infections, that type of thing. Geranium. This is a rose geranium, which is one of 3 parts of our acne recommendation. Does anybody have to battle with teenage acne somewhere in the family? You do? Oh, you don't? Oh, adult acne. Well, any acne that is that pops up because of a hormone imbalance of some kind. There's a 3-part process that you can use for acne. The first would be to use a citrus blend, either grapefruit, bergamot, or a mix, and you just take a little bit of warm water, you put the drops of oil just so it's on the top, and then you take a cloth, you put it in and use it as an astringent to take a little bit of the oil off the face. That's the biggest key to it. With those little oxy pads, or I don't know what they call them nowadays, but it's like basically an alcohol. You remove all the oil from the skin. What's the body's response? Make more oil. Yeah, exactly. So if you're using a citrus blend just to remove the right amount, and you can always adjust it. If you need to remove more, you add more. If you need to do less, you don't put as many drops in. So use that to get the oil off the face. Then in whatever you're using as a facial cleanser, a couple drops of rose geranium, which is hormone regulating. You use that